to the Ropocalypse show thing. Today, it's not really a show as much as it is, I wanted to talk about the Hekatonkhaires talisman thing that I put together and put up a video about yesterday on my Facebook page. So part of the whole Lux contra tenebris thing that I'm working on is about manifesting the things that we need to have to overcome our the things that stand against us, right? The whole thing about this Hermetic process of the great work is that we're supposed to be tapping into our source, identifying who we are within the construct and the context of our lives, and what it is we want to do with the powers that we were given when we manifested, right? So the Corpus Hermeticum teaches we're given all seven, a portion of all seven powers of the planets to create our lives. We're made in the image of the Creator God, right? So the whole thing about the Corpus Hermeticum is that we're here to create our lives and create according to how we see fit, because that's what we're designed to do. And it says that the reason that we don't do that is because we are basically, we forget who we are hidden from our powers are cut off from us and appropriated by other individuals, entities, and systems that result in us being used, abused, and returned to the source without having actually fulfilled the full potential of our lives. And most of the time people are you can tell if you're having a good time of it and you're doing a good job by how happy you are with what your experiences are. So like if you're feeling unsatisfied and like everything you're doing is just hollow and empty, then that's a good indicator that you're not in tune with the harmonic resonation that is your vibe, right? You're not being authentic to your own vibration, your tone, the notes that you create, that your natal chart placement, it's a snapshot of where the planets were when you were born. You can kind of understand that as a set of notes, right? A set of harmonies and melodies that are going to play out throughout your life, And when you're not in tune with that vibe, if you're not being authentically, if you're not vibing with yourself, you're going to feel out of place, out of sorts, like you don't belong, The process of the great work is harmonizing and getting in touch with those inner powers that have gotten clogged, distracted, or otherwise broken. Your lenses for the different powers get tarnished over time by your experiences. A lot of the initiatory experiences you go through when you start doing the empowerment series of initiations in the seven spheres, they result in you dealing with trauma or eliminating parts of your lives that are no longer aligned with what you want to manifest, right? Part of when I wrote the Seven Spheres book, it was about claiming your kingship, your authority over your life, the rulership that you were entitled to when you were born, because I do believe that we are all born free, and we are born free and then immediately slapped into handcuffs, chains, and bondage by society, by expectations, by cultures. The best way to get brainwashed is to be born. It's a simple fact. But the great work provides magicians with the tools to release themselves from the bondage and to release yourself from the things that are, hey, good morning, thieving polecat, and Tiana, good to see you again. But the great work frees us from these bonds that are applied to us by external things. On my website, I offer the instructional videos for going through the process of understanding and revealing and integrating the powers of the planet so that we need to be able to manifest our vibe more coherently in this universe, and so that the universe sort of aligns with what we expect. And also so that we can get past the anxieties and the frustrations that come from our day-to-day lives, or that can come from our day-to-day lives when we're out of harmony and out of balance. The exercises that I do with the Zeus cult stuff, it's all part of that. It's part of establishing and maintaining equilibrium on a regular basis. And if you watch my videos or watch my posts on Facebook, you know that I'm not I'm not like stable and harmonically in tune with everything all the time. I understand the process, and I have these moments of great peace, understanding, and attainment, but it passes as soon as I get emotionally charged and distracted, or start worrying about this, that, or the other. This the solution that solves all of those problems, all that anxiety, is remembering my source, remembering exactly what the Corpus Hermeticum teaches, that when you pursue your source, when you get to know where you're coming from with things, like in the noetic mind sense, like everything is a manifestation of these ideas and this mind of this field of consciousness that created everything and that expresses itself through everything. Everything that exists is alive and aware on a vibrational level in the same way that we are, according to the principles of the Corpus Hermeticum and the Derveni manuscript, the Orphic traditions that I've delved into for the symbol sets that I use. But anyway, within that system of cleansing and healing and getting in touch with your source and getting everything in place, there's a process of freeing yourself that we have to go through. The liberation process of the magician. It consists of freeing yourself from all the constraints that bind you from being able to materialize the things that you want to materialize. This can be stuff that you get from your parents growing up, or your culture growing up, or your the way you were treated by people that you're supposed to be able to trust. Throughout your life, you have bad things happen to you, and you walk away from it damaged, bruised, and hurt. And the great work gives you a way to reclaim that innocence and that power that you had before it was manipulated and stolen and perverted, right? The tools that we have to do that are initiation, right? We have the seven spheres. We have the gods of the seven spheres that we can talk to get the pure vibration of that current. We have the intelligences and the archangels. We have the materializing spirits from the Key of Solomon Pinnacles. Those are the sets that I use for symbols to tap into these forces. But when we conjure them and start working with them, their vibration is so pure that it resonates with our vibration, and that shakes off any kind of crap that's accumulated. So, like if you have a pure harmonic of Saturn, for example, it's going to shake off all of the. It's going to create a resonance with your Saturn powers that you received on your way down, that have gotten corrupted, right, through fear and anxiety about death, for example. The big one with Saturn is always like fear of death and the illusion of the permanence of your existence, right? Because we think that this is going to last forever, and if anything happens to us, it's all going to end, and that illusion is what is taken away when you go through your Saturn initiation. You realize that existence is a continuum, and that your personal drop in the ocean is one part of it, but it's not the whole thing. But it's important and vital to you within your experience, and it's not as frightening when you understand that it doesn't really, that it's a transformation and an ongoing transformation, that this is a part of, this is a stage in the energy that you represent in its existence throughout time. Within the constraints of this universe, your energy is going to manifest again and again, and it has before. The vibrations that make us up, the electricity that we use to move our body around, it comes from the sun. It's all energy that has been transformed and expressed in different ways, and it never can be created or destroyed. We still have background radiation from previous universes on the microwave level of that we can observe from previous incarnations of this universe. It's still a cohesive informational network that's shaping our experiences to this day, even though that universe is gone. And this is just science. This isn't mystical stuff. I have a lot of mystical things that I use to interpret things, but this is just science. Anyway, yeah. So Hermetics gives us the tools to clean that out, right? So that vibration, right? So we're going back to the Saturn example. When you do your initiation, it purifies that, and it allows you to understand that Saturn's powers are boundaries and fate and guidance. And yes, it's cold and dark and heavy, and it stops things, but that provides the framework around which everything else can form. Like, you need boundaries, you need a foundation, you need bones for your muscles to be able to move your brains and your organs around. You can't move without that structure. So once you understand what that structure is for, and you eliminate the fears and anxieties that have been placed around that power that you have inside of you, you're able to express it in ways that are effective and useful because it hasn't been corrupted by your fear, right? So the process of doing that is pretty straightforward. You go through these 7 initiations, you call on these spirits, and they clean you up a little bit at a time, and you ask for them to give it to you in portions that you can handle, digestible chunks. You're not doing it all at once overnight, because that can be dangerous, of course, but you go through the process of initiation, and it's progressive sanctification is one way to put it. You get a little bit better at a time until you're more good than bad at expressing these things. As you go through these processes, you run into bigger things that are not so easily resolved. So like, if you've had heavy trauma in your youth around sexuality, for example, your Venus initiation might be difficult. Your Mars initiation might be difficult. Your solar initiation might be difficult. Your Jupiter initiation might be difficult, depending on how that impacted your understanding of the roles that these archetypes of these energies and forces that they represent manifested in your life. And cleaning that out can be a process that takes a bunch of different steps. But sometimes, these things are very difficult to overcome. In that case, I've got things like the X-Hex, right, that I do for people who are going through relationships, or still struggling with a relationship that did them wrong in the past, and you feel like you're repeating your patterns over and over again. I put together a ritual that involves a Saturn-Mars rite, a solar rite, and a Venus rite to end and stop the previous impact of things, to transform that into something that's more prosperous for you and vital for you, and then conjure in the things that are good for you. That's the kind of thing that Hermetics is good at. It can give you the symbol sets to create the transformational rites that are necessary to get you past your hang-ups, the things that keep you from being able to be authentic and express your life in ways that bring you joy. So there's like the X-Hex rite, there's prosperity rites that I have because people have a bad relationship with money. Those are the key things that I think are important: sex and safety, security, food, shelter, clothing. But there's also massively oppressive forces in life, right? These titanic forces. And mythology and symbol sets are important to frame our transformational process of our spiritual growth. The Orphic tradition that I've embraced with the Zeus cult thing, it's based on an understanding of this consciousness field as that which manifests as everything. And quantum physics indicates that there's a general field that is vibrating at different layers depending on how you look at it, and different levels and different rates, and that results in what we experience. And every part of us has quantum particles in it, and every part of us is connected to this quantum field, right? And it's full of potential, and it's established in certain ways, and it operates according to the rules that we know, but it's all interconnected, and it's all vibrating, and it can be interpreted as the music of the spheres that has been our operating mystical analog for the last thousands of years. It goes back to the pre-Socratic ideas, right? And as you look at how our understanding of the universe evolved over time, you see that it follows these themes, but these ideas. Like, there's always some mystery sect somewhere in our existence on the planet that's telling people, we're all one thing, we're all part of one mind, and we're drops of the ocean, but every drop contains the ocean, and even though the drop is not the ocean. These kind of mystical understandings have been passed on through occultists, through mystics, through meditational guides, through you find it in Buddhism, you find it in some aspects of Christianity, Gnosticism, the Hellenic mystery traditions. These are all, it's part of where we come from, right? It's this basic understanding that we're all part of an operative core that is the source of everything, and also that which experiences it through us, right? Anyway, that whole thing, we've developed these symbol sets to encapsulate it and understand it in ways that we can interact with it, right? The Zeus metaphor, if you look at in the Hesiod, Zeus, out of chaos came the gods, and Sky and Gaia were united, and they were creating life, but Sky, Uranus, wasn't letting it be born, so Gaia gave Cronus a scythe, and Cronus cut off the Sky's phallus, and that stopped him from being able to generate things and allowed Gaia to birth the Titans, the first generation of gods, right? And then Cronus was set up as the king. He inherited the power of the generative force of the universe that Sky had previously, and he created a world based on his desires, but he still wasn't letting Rhea's the creations that he was creating with Rhea, like they were copulating and having sex and they were having babies, but he wasn't letting that be expressed. He was taking that power and consuming it for himself, right? So he was internalizing the gods as they were born, and Rhea took Zeus and gave Cronus a stone instead of Zeus, and raised Zeus off on this island where he was raised with Metis and these other entities to become the rebel that would overthrow this oppressive titanic force, right? And Zeus was raised to do all that. He sneaks into the courtroom of Cronus and slips him a sleeping potion that makes him throw up his brothers and sisters. He gets his brothers and sisters out of there, and then he goes to war against them, and he overthrows the Titans through the Titanomachy, right? And this is a metaphor. This is a mythic cycle that we can tap into as magicians, and that's something I talk about it a lot. We tap into that cycle to draw parallels to our own initiatory journey, right? Our initiatory path is very much like Zeus's. We're here to reclaim our power and our authority, our freedom, the freedom to express the life that we want. It's been taken from us by these oppressive forces, and it's not allowed to be expressed, right? Because of our conditioning, our programming, our grooming. When we were young, we were groomed to be obedient, submissive entities, and a lot of us fight against that our whole lives, and we end up in jail, and we end up on the streets, and we end up not being employable, because our mental states are so dissonant, because our true valid value vibration that we want to manifest has been so blocked by these oppressive things that want to use our power. They want to use our power for their pleasure, right? The things that we are here to create, they want to take that power of creation from us for their own benefit. This is billionaires. This is predators, right? All the people that take your joy for themselves and leave you with misery and suffering. That's the game, is trying to get you to suffer for their pleasure. It's not, they don't think of it that way. They just think they're getting what they want, but that's not how it works. We're all equally valuable entities, and we all have the right to dignity, the right to a dignified existence, where we're empowered to express what we want. That's what life is. We're all equal, and that's the thing, is that the system doesn't work if we are all equally empowered, so it's designed to keep us oppressed. And that's what this mythic cycle of the Titans consuming Cronus consuming the children of Rhea, so that their power can only be expressed through his desires. That's what we're fighting against. That's what this process of initiation is supposed to do. It's supposed to release the Zeus inside of us. The rebel orphan is supposed to seize his power, overthrow these titanic forces, and claim the throne, right? And what happened when Zeus overthrew Cronus was that death didn't rule existence anymore. It represents the symbolic transformation of your perspective from being afraid of death to the enthronement and enshrinement of the sovereignty of life itself. Your life is enthroned in the same way that Zeus is enthroned within mortality, within the boundaries of our life. We're granted our sovereignty. What Zeus did by overthrowing Cronus was he allowed the gods to create their experiences. He allowed the Olympians to create the heroic age, right? He allowed humans to experience existence and create their lives and play and enjoy and experience and fight and fuck within the boundaries of their lives. These are all things that Cronus wasn't allowing to happen. They weren't even allowed to materialize. They were enslaved, right? So Zeus freed them to experience existence, right? And the Orphic mystery takes it even a step further to where eventually he recreates the universe in his image, right? And the image of the universe that we're in now under Zeus is the expression of our sovereignty within our lives. Within our lifetime, we get to do what we want. That's the core thing, and that's what people are trying to rob from us. That's what this Titanic oppression is all about. It's about taking away our sovereignty to serve the vision of other people, right? But the great work isn't about that, all right? The great work is about freeing us from that. It's about taking back that experience, and we do that by conjuring these spirits and just being in their presence, because they are the light. They are the light that shines away the darkness. The darkness cannot exist in the light. The lux is contra tenebris. It is against the darkness. The darkness flees because the light just exists. Our transformation is done by conjuration. Our implementation of our wills, right, in this world, it's done by conjuring the spirits and telling them what we want to do, to have them do instead of what we're experiencing. You know, that's how it works, right? Anyway, the forces of darkness are hard to overcome. Okay, and Zeus had a hell of a time of it. The Titanomachy is the story of his fight against the Titans. It took like 1,000 years. It wasn't over and done in a day. He had battle after battle. He had war after war. You know, the war went on for a long time. And eventually, the way he overcame it was he incorporated the use of the monsters themselves against the Titans, the Titanic monsters that were too ugly to be allowed in Titanic society under Cronus's golden age. The Hekatonkhaires, the hundred-handed monsters, and the Cyclopes, the one-eyed monsters, they were too ugly and too monstrous to be allowed in polite society, civilized society. So Cronus put him in hell. He put him in the underworld, right? And the only person that had the key to the underworld was Hecate, right? And after Zeus defeated the Titans, first of all, he had to get the Cyclops to give him the tools that he used, the weapons, the shining bolt. I think it was the Aegis also came from the Cyclopes, and the Cyclopes fashioned his weapons that he used to overthrow the other Titans. And it was the hundred-handed that were conjured at the very last battle that buried the Titans. It was through his access to the underworld, which had to be through Hecate. She's Cleiaduce. She's Hecate Cleiaduchos, the key holder. The keys she holds are to the underworld, and it was her opening the gateways to the underworld to release the Titans that had been kept away, the ugly, monstrous things that people don't want to accept and allow into their lives. You release those things, and that's how you overcome these titanic forces. That's what empowers you with the lightning bolt. Zeus was able to hold down and suppress the Titans with his bolt and with the Aegis and with the powers of Poseidon and Hades and all the other Olympian gods that were fighting against him and the Titans that joined him. But it was through Hecate releasing the hundred hands and the Cyclopes that he was able to not only suppress the Titans, but then the hundred-handed ones are the ones that buried the Titans, and they buried them all the way down next to the very underworld of right next to Hades, underneath the world by Tartarus, down by the magma. That's where the earthquakes come from. It's the struggling of the Titans trying to be free. I want to mention real quick that Saturn's power, the power of death, did not go away with Saturn. The sovereignty of Saturn went away. It was transformed. When we do the Orphic hymn to Saturn now on Saturdays, we're calling on the Titan that was defeated, who's buried underneath the ground, right? What that represents is death doesn't hold the power anymore. It is the structure. It provides the form and the structure of us, of our lives, from the birth to death. It's the container in which we express the light that is our soul, our core essence, the energeticness of existence. It's within that container, but it's subject to the divine will of the all thing. Zeus, the all in all. Zeus ho Pantocrator. Zeus ho Mesos. Zeus ho Kephale. Zeus the head. Zeus the middle. Zeus the all in all. All these things are all of it now, right? And death provides the container for it, right? But that's because it was overcome. It was because it was subjected to the forces of the Hekatonkhaires. So anyway, I'm all about bringing light to the world, right? I want us to all be individually enlightened, illuminated, and empowered to reclaim what the Corpus Hermeticum says about us. I want that to be true for us, and in our pursuit of that, we are constantly fighting against titanic forces that are bigger than us, more powerful than us. And we have to use our Hermetic skill sets to create the symbols, to release the powers, to draw down the effects and manifest the world that we want to create, right? We're creating an alternate reality with our power as magicians. That's what we're trying to do. Life is hard. Magic helps. We influence our experiences through our magical initiations by directing these forces like a conductor directs the orchestra. That's what we're doing with this work, To that end, I created this. Well, actually, I had commissioned by Adeline Dolly Soothtel the images that I'm about to show you. So it's a talisman, but it's not just a talisman. It's a system. It's a way of thinking of things. All right. But I wanted to be able to conjure up the Hekatonkhaires to overthrow titanic forces. You can imagine, without thinking too long about it, you can probably imagine what the titanic forces are that drove me to think that this would be a useful thing. But the image that I wanted was, I couldn't come up with it on my own. I don't have the skills to do it. So I had Adeline create this for me, and let me get to the right one here. So this is the image that they created for us, and what it says around the edges is, as the Hekatonkhaires against the Titans, right? So as the Hekatonkhaires against the Titans, and then it's got their names here in the middle: Gyges, Kotos, and Baryon. Let me find where I have it written down. Briareus. Briareus, also called Aegeon or Aegeon, but Briareus, Kotos, and Gyges are in the center of it. And then around it we've got the 100 hands. Right? It's not really 100 hands, but it's symbolic of the 100 hands, and each hand is carrying a stone, right? And this represents that force that they brought to bear to overwhelm and contain the titanic forces that are always trying to oppress us and take over our ability to create things. And I made these talismans, and the idea of them is that, let me make this a little bigger so you can see. These are very small. They're inch and a quarter, right? These are necklaces. They're engraved in copper because copper is what I happened to have when I was making it, and it was a Friday. So I wanted to engrave it with that. And here is being engraved. But basically, the idea is that these forces can be called on by their names and their seals, just like everything else we do in conjure magic within the Hermetic tradition. So in a lunar hour, because the moon receives the power of all the other spirits, and also because Hecate is Hecate Cleiaduce is the god that you call on to unleash the underworld. She has the keys to the underworld. So in the lunar hour, these are engraved, and I call upon I use the prayer to Selene for all things from the Greek magical papyri to call upon her to release the Hekatonkhaires and let their power be formed in this talisman. And then on the other side, I've got these. It's the 7 seals of the Key of Solomon planetary talismans that represent the 4 spirits of each planet that you work with to manifest your desires. So within the Key of Solomon, there's a bunch of pinnacles for the planets, and then within each planet, there's one that has 4 names on it. So these 7 seals each have 4 spirits associated with it, and they are, in my understanding of the whole system of Hermetics, they are the materializers of the planetary forces in our day-to-day lives and our experiences. And it's through working with them that we direct the manifestation of the planetary powers when we want to actually change our experiences. They're the ones, each set of spirits has 2 that end in EL and 2 that end in IAH, which represents passive and active forces, right, of these spirits. But I think the moon does. I think the moon is all ends in EL. But regardless, for the most part, it follows this understanding. So what I wanted to do is I wanted the Hekatonkhaires, the forces of Hekatonkhaires, to be able to manifest in my experienced world. So I put these 7 spirits, the seals of the 7 planets and the 4 spirits of each, on the back of it, so that it would sort of empower the manifestation of these forces of the Hekatonkhaires against the things that we wanted to see disappear. The Lux contra tenebris that we are going for here. So this is what it looks like when it's done. I think it looks pretty cool. That's side B, that's side A, and these are kind of small. I got one right here somewhere. So this is what it looks like. This is actual size, right? So it's designed to be like a little necklace. This was my prototype. It's in copper. Chances are I will be making it. I'm probably going to end up silver plating the copper because silver is rather expensive right now. And I want to have it because it's going to be in the under the auspices of Selene and done in the lunar hour. I think it would be better if I do it in silver. So I'm going to silver plate these copper things and make them and then engrave these in silver going forward. But if you want to purchase them, the link is in the description. So anyway, that was that part of it. But I also wanted to show you, this is what my original intention was for this. I wanted to create a tool that we can use to physically, ritually bury our titanic forces that we want to get rid of in our lives. And that's what, shrink that down a little bit. That's what this part is for. Let me see if I can get that a little bigger. So this was something that I made originally. This is the it's a Hekatonkhaires spirit pot. Oops, it's not gonna loop because I don't have it on loop. All right, so this is a bowl, or not a bowl, a jar kind of thing I made out of cherry wood. It's got a bunch of pebbles in it. I believe there are 100 stones in there. And the idea is that you basically, and it's got the seal of the Hekatonkhaires engraved on the lid. And the idea is that you basically write down the things that represent the titans that you want to get out of your life. You put it underneath the rocks, and you call on the Hekatonkhaires to basically bury that force in your life. So far, I have not seen it automatically result in the elimination of the major things I would like to see changed in this world right away. However, since I've had that the spirit pot in operation, I have seen the cracks beginning to form in the situation as I see it that is oppressing us. Okay, the titanic forces that want to keep us down, that have been grooming generation after generation for the pleasure and evil intentions of the elite, are falling apart. You know, the light is destroying the protection that the darkness has enjoyed for way too long. All right, the light is exposing people for what they are. Okay, and people are sick of it. We can empower ourselves to transform this world, to take back that sovereignty within our mortality, to enjoy our expression of the all thing that is coming into being for the purposes of our experience of life. We can reclaim that through our occult practices by freeing ourselves, free our mind, and the rest will follow, right? You free your mind, you free your spirit, you let your brothers and sisters out of that slavery, and that's reclaiming your forces. You know, when Zeus gave Cronus the ipecac, you know, and he threw up his brothers and sisters, that's your initiatory process. It's gross in this metaphor. It's yucky. You know, you get sticky, you get it's vomiting out these powers in your life, and they have to get cleaned up, and you have to integrate them and get them trained to actually work in your sphere. You know, the process of initiation is not, I conjured the spirits and now I'm a master of Venus, haha. It's not that. It's an initiation. It's initiating the process. It begins when you conjure the spirits, you know, and that process, it results in a way of understanding the forces, of integrating them, of claiming back the ways that you're using them poorly in your life. You know, like if you had, if you were hurt in your first relationship and you repeat that relationship over and over throughout your life, you know, and you keep being attracted to people who are harmful to you, or you end up harming people in the same way that you were harmed in your first relationship, you know, these kind of imprints that you take, you recreate, and you're producing your life through this broken lens. And as you go through this initiatory process, you realize that you're putting energy out. You have to stop that. You reclaim it. You transform it with the great work. You clean it up, and then you learn to express it again. It's a process. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. But as we go through initiation and we integrate these forces, then they start to work for us, you know, and then we can turn it to creating the experience for ourselves and the people that we care about, that we want to see happen in this world, right? So these Hekatonkhaires talismans that I'm providing people, I expect them to be used for overcoming the really big things, right? The really big things that stop us from being able to advance. But this is for the reason it's important now is because we're entering into a whole new era, right? This is the end of imperialism, of the United States imperialism. Like if you look astrologically, this is going to be a big deal for the next 120 years, right? What we're going through right now. It's setting the tone for the next 40 years for sure, but probably the next 135 years or so, right? And that's just how it goes with these astrological cycles. You know, you don't repeat the same events. You go up to the next level, and you either learn from your mistakes or you haven't. And it's going to be different this time around, but it's going to be the same in a lot of ways, right? This is the revolutionary time where empires fall. That's okay. It's not fun, it's awful. But people who are enlightened, illuminated, who have a vision of what they want to see that is good for everybody else, have the power at times like this to overthrow the titans, to overthrow the oppressive powers that have stagnated and constrained life for its own purposes rather than life's purposes. This is the moment where we get to reestablish a zone of safety, a safe space in which we can express our light and create using the resources that we have available to us in 2026. It's a beautiful time to be alive if it weren't for all the fuckery going on. We have so much at our disposals. We could fix so many problems. We can feed everybody. We could provide a basic standard of living that is good for everyone if we just would do it, if we would just agree to do it. But we've got all these power systems in place that are going to fight against us. And we need to overcome that if we want to have a better life. The United States was formed around some really good ideas. It was an awful, it was an awful situation, right? But they took colonialization and the death of all of the native people, right? That they destroyed when the Europeans came over here. They destroyed this place. I wasn't part of that. I'm an immigrant. I'm a child of an immigrant. We got here in the 40s, 50s, maybe 20s, 1920s, right? It was already fucked up when we got here. My people didn't do that, but my people have participated in what happened since, right? And my people have benefited from the enslavement and the constraints that were placed over this land, right? And the people and the energies in this land, the forces of prosperity have been corrupted for through industrialization to profit a very, very select few of people who are now trying to enslave the rest of us, But we can break all that up now. We can break it all up and establish a new pattern, a new form, a new Saturn, a new set of bones, a new foundation with new boundaries. Right? And we can do that as peacefully or as violently as it has to be. But we can do that. And if we set our purposes on establishing the light, the opportunity for the light to exist and express itself freely, if we establish that as the constraint that Zeus established when he overthrew the Titans, when he overthrew Cronus, and took the throne, he established that mortality was not going to define us, that slavery was not going to define us. Look at Hercules. He suffered, sure, but he was life itself overcoming things. He was the expression of Zeus's character in this world, which was to overcome the shit that was given to him by Hera, people who just hate on him, right? That overcoming things through his own power and his strength and the grace of the powers of the planets that helped him through all of the trials. That's the story that Zeus wants to tell, the empowerment of his manifestations to overcome tribulations. That's what we get to do. Yay. Lucky us. But these are the tools that we have to help with it. We get to, as magicians, we get to come up with our ability to tap into these powers through the technology of magic, which is symbol and name. By your name and your seal, I call you forth. These are the things that we use to conjure the spirits, right? So now we've got a seal for the Hekatonkhaires, and we have their names, right? And by their names and their seals, we can call them forth, and we can give them the powers to materialize what we want through these 7 spheres, And Hecate Cleiaduce, she's the one that opens the gate, right? So by all means, I use the symbol for yourself if you want to. You can take screenshots of it. I think I've got if you go to my Facebook page, Rufus Opus page, on Facebook. I posted, and even on my personal page, I posted the graphics that I use for this. Okay, you can draw your own. You can make your own on paper, and it's going to be ever as much as effective as everything else that we do. Okay, these are nice things that I'm making because I have a laser and the time for it, and great. But all the things I have in my life, I built with magic through paper talismans. You guys, I didn't have a laser and copper to do all this stuff, and I didn't have money to buy it. You know, I had to conjure Bune to get riches for a man. That's what it took for me. Bune is how I got here. Bune and Jupiter and Zeus, and then integrating the forces that were released in my initiations. That's where I found my strength and my ability to create the life that I want within the boundaries, and with having to interact with everybody else and the cosmic weather and whatnot. But it's magic, it's names and seals, and that's what this is for. By all means, make your own, use your own, do it in a lunar hour. uh, do the prayer to Selene for all things from the Greek magical papyri. At the end of it, you ask her to release the Hekatonkhaires, and then you say, I call them by name. Let me look those up again because I'll forget it. Uh, Briareus, Codus, and Gyges, come forth, empower this talisman. Help me to overcome all the titanic forces that I need to bury. Grant me the power. Let them be completely and utterly buried forever, so that their rumblings might let us know that they exist, but their ability to destroy us is mitigated. Mitigated, destroyed, removed, right? They can't enslave us. They can still rock our worlds from time to time, but they can't control us, you know? Anyway, that's the intent of this. Links are in the comments if you want to buy them, but also, yeah, make your own. The images are out there, out and about, and all the images I use, by the way, I get from Adeline Soothtel, pretty much. I think I've made a couple on my own, but they're either handmade or I'm getting them from Adeline. Adeline is a great resource for digital art and everything else. So do look them up on the Facebooks and whatnot. Excellent artist. That's all I got for today, guys. Have a great afternoon, and I hope that you are doing what you can to create a more enlightened world for yourself and for everybody else. That's what we're here for, in my opinion.